good afternoon. We are honored to be here with you today to share some of our expertise about the education system and how your students can thrive and not just survive as they get ready for their post-secondary plans as middle and high school students. My name is Amanda Thrower. I am the principal at Lambert High School. I just wrapped up my 22nd year in education. I have been, thank you. I have been a middle and high school English teacher, a middle and high school assistant principal, and a middle and high school principal. And this has been my first year at Lambert. Lambert is also my home school. My oldest child just graduated about 3 weeks ago. As a Lambert graduate, my students my own personal children, I have 3. They will all go K-12 in the Lambert cluster. So my youngest just finished his time at Johns Creek Elementary and will head to Riverwatch Middle School next year. My middle just turned 16. She will be a junior at Lambert next year with me. And like I said, my oldest just graduated and she will head off to the University of Georgia in a couple of months to pursue a major in marketing. So Lambert is very dear to me, not just as the principal, but as a parent and community member.
Good evening. I'm Kim Oliver, and I am the principal of Denmark High School, and this is my 31st year. I just completed my 31st year in education. My career spans 2 states. This is my 2nd state, and I was an English teacher as well for 21 years, and then I have been an administrator for about the past 12 years. I served as an assistant principal at Lambert at North Forsyth, and I was a teacher at South Forsyth High School, and I have been the principal of Denmark for 3 years. I also worked for the State Department in a different state where I traveled throughout the state, and I did teacher development for how to teach students how to write better and how to be involved more in the classroom. So I also had that experience that I'll be speaking about a little bit today. We moved to this county in 2005 for my husband to have on-the-job training, and we were to return to our previous state. And when the 3 years were up, we decided we valued the educational system so much here that we wanted to stay for the opportunities it presented to our personal children as well as to me as an educator. So that is why we're still here today. I have a daughter who is 24, who is about to be 25, who works for a startup tech company in Alpharetta. And I have a son who is going to be a sophomore at Mississippi State University in the fall. He is very much involved in life as a Mississippi State Bulldog.
Hi, I'm Tamiko Sabate-Aguiji. Currently, I'm the proud principal at Piney Grove Middle School, but I am also celebrating my 25th year in education. It's hard to believe it goes by so fast and there's so much left to do. So I see why people go for 40 years. You miss the kids. So I was a science teacher for middle school and high school. Then I was a middle school and a high school assistant principal before coming to Piney. I spent about 3 years in curriculum development in Forsyth County schools, supervising and supporting teachers with science, health, PE, and STEM initiatives. So my children are all spread out. My 27-year-old, she works at a biotech firm, and my 20-year-old is a phlebotomist, and my 2 sons go to school with me at Piney, so I'm so excited about that.
All right, good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Kemal Burak. I'm a sociology professor at Georgia Tech. I also completed 30 years in education, but as a student, because I finished, we can calculate together, but I have 2 masters and 1 PhD degree, so just the masters and PhD cost me around 12 years. So I finished my PhD at Emory University here in Atlanta in sociology. As a professor, this is my 2nd year. I worked 1 year at Emory, and then I started working as of last fall. I started working at Georgia Tech, and I have been teaching mainly introduction level classes, but at the same time, this upcoming fall, I'll be teaching religion, immigration, and sports class, hopefully at Georgia Tech. And we have 3 children. They're also pretty much spread out. My son, he also goes to Lambert. He's a sophomore. Sorry, he's a rising junior. He just finished sophomore year. And I have a daughter at South Forsyth High School. She's going to be 8th grader. So she's rising 8th grader. And then we have also a 15 or 16, 16 month of a baby. So he's only 16 months. So once they are gone to college, we didn't want to be alone. So we decided to have one extra baby. Thank you guys. Glad to be here.
So like I said, we're very honored to be here and talk with you about some of the kind of trends, I guess, we're seeing from the administrative and leadership lens in South Forsyth, where we all have the privilege to serve and lead our schools. One of the things that we're seeing more and more is this kind of sellout or extreme focus on just the academic aspect of school and not taking into account more of the whole experience that we aim to offer. As school leaders, we certainly strive to make sure that we're putting great instruction and great content and a solid academic experience in front of our students. But the other thing that we strive to do is create a culture where our students can be treated as a whole person and the whole child can be developed. And so one thing that I tell parents a lot to remember as they're just strictly focused on that academic schedule and making sure my kid's on the right path to certain things is to remember that in the background of the intellectual education that is taking place for your student is a social education as well, where we're striving to make sure that their interpersonal skills, those soft skills, the ability to work as a teammate, the ability to communicate effectively with teachers and to self-advocate, that all of those things are being developed as well. Ms. Oliver and I are going to provide some different statistics for you today in our presentation, most of which came from a book that she and I are reading titled Never Enough: When Achievement Culture Becomes Toxic. And we started down this path together because she and I are both seeing some trends at our schools, and mainly here when I got to Lambert, it came from the students first who reached out to me and said, Ms. Thrower, we really need some help because of the competitive nature of Lambert and this pressure to compete and achieve at these insanely high levels. But one of the studies that this book references is a recent study conducted by Gallup and Purdue University. It was one of the largest ever conducted, looking at success beyond college, and once they're out of college, what's taking place in their work lives. And so you can read this on the screen with me, but we pulled this excerpt particularly from the book because it was very powerful to us. Researchers found that the prestige of the college they had attended, whether it was highly selective or not selective, public or private, small or large, hardly mattered at all to their current well-being and their work lives. What did impact later life success was a student's experience while they were at that school, particularly the quality of the relationships and their level of engagement on campus. So as high school principals, we can take that to be true too as we prepare high school students for their college experience. What's going to help make them successful at that next level? And the same is true, their ability to be a part of a school community, not just in the classroom, but in those extracurriculars and other settings. We believe that that is also what's going to prepare them to be successful college students as well.
So as Ms. Thrower was talking, we definitely think that there are lots and lots of options in Forsyth County Schools for students to get involved. One of the ways that students can get involved are with the varied pathways that we offer at the high school level. So we have the slide, and this is available, this information is also available on Forsyth County Schools webpage, and you can find it through CTAE. But we have things such as artificial intelligence, computer science, we have culinary, we have healthcare sciences, we have business classes, marketing classes, so lots of different ways for students to get involved, because we are thinking that the best opportunity for students to explore in really a non-threatening way is in high school. So what I say to parents all the time, we have vet science at Denmark. And if you think your child would like to be a veterinarian in the future, a great way to explore that is in the high school arena. Because then your child can experience vet science, and guess what? They might decide at the end of their high school experience that they don't want to be a veterinarian. And that's okay, because then we have not been in college for all those years, probably about 7 years, majoring in vet science, and then discover while we are veterinarians that we don't really want to be veterinarians. So it's lots of opportunities for students to explore at that level. I also tell students coming into Denmark, I'm like, hey, let's take a deep breath. Middle school is not high school is not college. Let's try to have the high school experience. And for me, the high school experience, when I'm talking about that, it is 100% the classroom experience and what we are providing for students in the classroom. Are we teaching students to think critically, to write critically, to have a different opinion than someone else and be able to explain that eloquently with research, and also listen to other people's perspective. But it's also other things like pep rallies and dances, football games, basketball games, clubs, extracurricular activities. And with our pathways, one of the ways that our students get involved with high school is through CTSOs, such as DECA, FCCLA, FBLA, TSA. I'm sure you've heard of those opportunities before. And what those organizations do is they allow our students to work together to compete and to problem solve. Each year, our county has lots of students who win at the state and then participate at the national level. But I definitely think what those opportunities do is allow students to become something larger, a part of something larger than themselves, where they work as a team and they contribute to that team instead of working individually. The only piece of advice I would offer at this point about pathways and about CTSOs or in clubs or organizations is I encourage our students to choose things that they are personally interested in. Sometimes our students want to take a class or be in a CTSO like TSA because they've heard their neighbors are doing it, and I always am like, if you're not actually interested in it, just wait and figure out what you are interested in, because I think that makes the best high school experience.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about before they are heading over to high school, there's some things that we all can do collectively. When I say we, I mean parents, the friends of students in school, our teachers, our counselors, and our leaders at the middle school level. We need to make a pact that middle school is for exploration. I have more and more kids coming from 5th grade describing to me what they're going to be. And what you'll often find between myself and my middle school peers, we're trying to flip that question. The question should be, what problems do you want to solve? Oh, you don't know any problems? That's where the learning comes in from. So we're starting to design learning experiences in the classroom that revolve around what are the issues, whether that's in literature, whether that's in science, whether that's in computer science, or whether that's in personal fitness, that they need to solve. And those will be the careers of the future that they become passionate about. So a lot of our instruction revolves around project-based learning. A lot of it is interdisciplinary. So we're trying to encourage students to stop saying, I'm not a math student. Because when you start to see them work with a team and it has math involved and it's math for a purpose or it's relevant to society, they do just fine with math. The same is true for my students who think that they are not a humanities student, that they aren't a good reader or they aren't a good writer. We found repeatedly that when we engage them in opportunities to write with purpose, to communicate their thoughts and ideas after they've worked critically with teachers and other students or professionals in the community, they do just fine. And we see that as not only preparing them to do better with less stress as they get to high schools who are asking those same more rigorous tasks, but as they go into the world of work or post-secondary opportunities, whether that's the Space Force or a college or university or a 2-year program. So you'll see our pathways above. It's just as important for them to take various pathways, because remember, they don't have to take 3 like they do in high school. So 1 year they may take computer science and say, it's not for me, or they may take it every year for 9 weeks. Because remember, they don't have to commit to it for a full credit hour like they do in high school. They may jump over to marketing. They may jump over to art. They may jump over to drama, even though they don't want to go to Broadway. So our purpose in the middle school is for them to explore a variety of coursework. Many students come to us at Piney, they don't realize that Atlanta has a thriving film and animation career pathway. It's more than just having The Walking Dead. There's millions of careers that go behind the scenes that are science and math based, arts and humanities based, writing of the scripts. And so we're trying to make sure that we encourage students to look at all the things that may not only give them enough money to provide for their families, but also work into their passions and interests. Piney has added 3 pathways. You'll notice that we added computer science, we added art and audiovisual and film, and then we also had the Junior Achievement Edition to our school. So we continue to add those options so that students can have that relevance to the world at a time when everything around them is shifting. Most students come into our building at 10 years old. And that's a lot of pressure for a 10-year-old to think they need to know what they need to be. They're still trying to find out who they are. So when you hear their trusted adult or their homeroom teacher or a counselor discussing what their assets are, we go well beyond their test scores so that we can make sure that they have a total picture of themselves and they can speak positively instead of having a lot of negative self-talk.
So just to kind of reiterate some of the things we've already said, but some other ways that students get involved on our campus is through our fine arts, which Dr. O was already talking about at the middle school level. We certainly have art, we have 2D art, we have 3D art, we have drawing, painting, we also have performing arts, and that's band, chorus, also theater and musical theater. We have a robust program that you'll find in all of our schools where we do a number of shows each year that parents and community members can attend. And to be honest with you, sometimes when I'm sitting there, get pretty emotional to realize that our students are so talented that what we see on the stage is something that's found inside of our schools, because they spend a lot of hours preparing for that, and then when you see it, it's pretty remarkable. I talked my husband into attending Les Mis, and the way I convinced him to go is I told him at intermission, you can leave if you don't like it. So he said, okay, I'll go. So then when we got down there, I did not talk to him the entire first half, and at intermission I said, well, what do you think? He says, oh my goodness, these kids are so talented. And I said, yeah, that's what I've been telling you. And he said, yes, but you're pretty biased when it comes to Denmark, so I didn't believe you. But since then, he has come to all of the shows. So just another way that we can have an influence on students positively and for them to get involved. We have lots of students from the Forsyth County area that are actually in fine arts colleges or performing arts colleges. We have some students right now who are on Broadway as well from Forsyth County. We also offer lots of athletic organizations on campus. Some of those are club, and some of those are through Georgia High School Accredited Association, GHSA. But we offer, we range from ninth grade, JV, and varsity sports. High schools have about 26 different sports that we offer. And then for club sports, we offer cricket for sure. We also, I know Ms. Thrower at Lambert offers fencing. That's not something we offer at Denmark, but anything that a student really comes to us, as long as we don't already have it on our campus, if we can figure out a way to get that onto our campus, to have a sponsor to work with students, we're pretty open to do so. And the other way, of course, is clubs. Each of us have about probably 70 clubs at least at the high school level, and over 40 clubs at the middle school level for students to become involved in. And what I think colleges and universities are looking for, a couple of things: a well-rounded student who's able to contribute to the high school community. So I think it goes beyond saying that you're a member of a club, but maybe working into an officer position. My sister-in-law worked at Princeton. She is transferring out this year, but one of the things she talked about, if you're attending Princeton, when they're looking at the freshman class for Princeton, they were not looking for a student who had been involved in every single club on a campus. They were looking for a student who had committed to maybe 3 or 4 clubs and started out as a member and worked their way into a contributing factor, an officer position. Because she said while we're trying to create at Princeton was a well-rounded freshman class, and that they weren't looking for necessarily an individual who had been in 40 clubs and organizations. So just thinking about being involved in a campus, contributing to it positively, and working in a club or organization. And like I said, there's lots to choose from, and working your way from a member to an officer position. And then in that officer position, using that really to better the community. And maybe that's through organizing a school-wide canned food drive. We have organizations that will organize a calculator drive that we would, donate those calculators, or we do school supply drives for less fortunate individuals, or sometimes we do those to our elementary schools. Also, if we're having a read with a high schooler night or an event at an elementary school, having our students join in with that, or some other ways to get students plugged in, and also other things that colleges might be looking for when they're evaluating students as a prospective member of their campus.
And I'll just add to that, going back to what I was saying about that social education being just as important as the academic and taking place alongside it. For me and my children at Lambert, being a part, I have one who was in theater. She's actually in that picture. That's her between the 2 girls in the red dresses. So very active in musical theater at Lambert. And then my other daughter plays softball and flag football. So they are very different kids. But the most important thing to me in them finding those communities or those groups was for them to have a place to connect at Lambert. Lambert is the largest school in the district, and Denmark is very close behind us. We're going to be at 3,200 students next year. So to make a really large school like that feel small for our kids, this is how we do that, is by giving them these points of connectivity. So for my girls, my daughter's, she's not going to go play softball in college. That's not what it's about. But it's about her having a team. It's about her having a home base at Lambert when she's walking those hallways flooded with a lot of other kids. Same for my daughter who just graduated and will head to UGA. I don't worry about her finding her people at UGA because I saw her do it at Lambert, and I saw her develop that.
Also, just to piggyback on that, Ms. Furr is exactly right. My daughter played softball also when she was in high school, and she is getting married next May, and 4 of her softball teammates are actually bridesmaids, although they don't know it yet. She hasn't asked them, but I've seen the list. So I just think my son was also involved in basketball and some other extracurricular activities, but one of the things we're charged with as leaders in a school is making large schools feel smaller. And that just means helping students find their group, helping people find their supporters. I always say that your circle should clap the loudest for you. I've seen that quote. If they don't, you should get a new circle. So I think one of the ways that students can find their own circle is to figure out ways that they're, share interest, a group that they share an interest with, and really that's through extracurriculars, as Ms. Thurr was saying.
So we wanted to bring in a very important point, and this kind of piggybacks on a lot of the students knowing how to manage time, even as a young child, trying to manage their own behavior. You'll often hear students who are in second or third grade still having meltdowns. Well, that looks very different when it comes to a student in middle school and a student in high school. How they process those emotions about overwhelm looks very different. As you look at the slide, 2% of our students, although that may sound small in comparison to other places in the state, it's always going to be too high to us. It's going to be too high to anyone in the room for a student to contemplate not being on this earth for any reason. And so as we work together as a team and look at what are some of the indicators for students who have mental health issues, the number one sign for students who express that they are having issues with their mental health is either peer pressure or adult pressure. And that translates to internal pressure that they grapple with back and forth. The next statistics that we wanted to share was 87% of the youth in Forsyth felt that they were stressed. Well, they usually aren't stressed about the things that they enjoy because they communicate through other survey responses. They don't do the things they enjoy the most because they are too busy doing things that they think other people want them to do. That's what creates some of that stress. So as your students go through the system of education as well as other outside activities, be mindful that if it's age appropriate, moderation should be the key. They still don't have to do it all the time. They should have a sense of balance. They shouldn't sacrifice some of those basic skills like sleeping, eating. If you notice students not eating, not sleeping a full 8 hours of rest when they're probably growing the most since they were probably a toddler, you're going to start to see that come out in other ways. It is up to all of us to moderate what contributes to the stress and well-being of our students. But in Forsyth County, we do have wraparound services available. So we have peer helpers. That's a low level of support where they find peers that they already feel comfortable talking to sometimes just map out their week or to talk about conflicts that they might have with friends or teachers. And then on the other end, we have an open door policy for all of our counselors to not only advise them about classes they can take, but to liaise and help to give them the tools to work with teachers so that they don't have that line drawn between, because this person is an adult, I want to respect them, that I can't communicate that I'm having difficulty with their classwork or difficulty engaging in anything that they are asking them to do. They can go to their school counselor, ask for that to facilitate the conversations. They also can go to their school counselor if they're feeling stressed and other more personal reasons. Counselors are there for a reason. They're a resource to students, but they're also a resource to you as parents. And it doesn't have to be a negative interaction. It's not any shame in asking for help because we're growing humans. So we anticipate that some students or some families will have difficulties that we have to come in and help with the family. That's why they're called support personnel in our staff. So one of the other things that we want to talk about for mental health is that 67% of high school students, they report being worried about college admissions. Remember that there's other things to do before college. So if they're not ready for college, that should be a household conversation. Not when everybody's sign is going in the yard to announce that, hey, I'm going to Harvard, or hey, I'm going to Georgia Southern. That conversation should probably start when they enter high school at 9th grade, that they can go straight to the field of work with some of our career pathway assessments. They can go straight into the military service. They can go straight into job training. They can be a supportive family member. My daughter, before she became a phlebotomist, was a full-time caretaker for my father. So there are other ways to provide value to bring that stress level down about what is the next step after high school. This is the one time that all the responsibility is not on them. After high school, the rest of the world views them as an adult.
So the final piece on that slide says 70% of young adults report that they thought their parents valued and appreciated them more when they were successful in school and work. So I'm going to just share a personal story with you, and then a couple of other stories from Denmark. But when my son was a junior in high school, he was taking a pretty rigorous course load with a number of AP classes, mostly AP classes, which sometimes happens in a junior year. He was doing a varsity sport, and he was also working a part-time job. And one time he got his report card, and he had all A's and a B. And as a parent, I really only talked to him about his B and really got on to him about having a B. And he looked at me and he said, "Mom, why is it that all you want to talk to me about is the B?" He said, "You have not acknowledged a single A on this report card." He made me feel pretty small because he was right. That was the only thing that I emphasized. I did not give him any praise for the A's, and I created pretty much a toxic environment in my own home. And I'm going to be very transparent with you. My son was also struggling at that time with lots of stomach issues, and the fact that after almost every meal he ate, he was throwing up. And so we had to go see a specialist and everything. And so a lot of that was caused from stress. That was some stress from his peers at school, but also a lot of stress from me for him to perform in the classroom. I think sometimes as a principal, you feel extra pressure if your child doesn't have all A's. So I'm just being fully transparent with you. So there was that as well about working to his potential. But he kind of reset me in that I did not need to be focusing on having all A's so much, and it worked itself out once I kind of relieved the stress from him. He ended up with all A's anyway. That's really wasn't the point. The point was I was damaging our relationship because of the pressure I was putting on him, and I was actually making him physically ill because one of the things that a high school principal has to be, I think, is pretty intense about education. But I had to learn to table that within my own home because of what I was doing to him. Additionally, I've met with some students at Denmark who were in my office just kind of talking to me. Sometimes it's more of a motherly relationship, I would say. And so I had a student who came to me and he said, "Hey, the only time my mom talks to me, she's asking me about my grades, she's asking me about my homework, he's asking me about what I'm doing in my clubs," and he said, "I really need a mom, not an academic advisor. Can you give me some help? Can you offer me some suggestions of how I can talk to my mom?" So that was something that I, called the counselor over from the counseling department, and I worked with him to talk about some things that he could do. I will say there's always a cost. Everything has a cost, and so I think it's important that we recognize the cost of the pressure that we put on, and sometimes it's the relationship. Another student in my office was a female student. She said, and that's also, I saw it in this book as well, the difference between getting a 91 and a 99 is a lie. I can get a 91 in my classes and still be very low stressed, and it is an A. and colleges see it as an A. But a 91 in my house is really not good enough. My parents want me to have a 99, so we kind of talked about that. We actually met with her parents and helped her kind of navigate there. I had another student who I actually taught, and he said that in his home, English was his second language. He was originally from Korea, and he was a very good student, but it was I taught AP English language, so it was a difficult class, particularly if English isn't your first language and you had a B. He was begging me to just change it. He said, can you just change my grade to an A? And I said, I really can't do that. That's not an ethical practice that I can do. And he said, well, in my home, A is average and B is bad. And so I think just helping understand, the pressures that students have. And so we talked about how to navigate that. And, the conversation wasn't super positive in his home, but I think he worked on that. He's a very successful student today, and we still keep in touch through Facebook.
The other trend that we're seeing that the academic pressure is causing students is they are resorting to cheating. The academic dishonesty numbers at Lambert are at an all-time high, and I think at Denmark as well. And what surprises me the most in a lot of these cases is, well, one, the students are telling on each other because they see that as competition, and well, if I'm going to try and get you in trouble for cheating because it might mean an edge up for me. The other thing that I'm seeing is when we contact the home, a lot of times the response we're getting from the parents is not one of remorse or, oh, we're so sorry, we've taught my child better than this. But it's really just they want a conversation fully around what can we do to not put this on their record so that there's no record of this happening. And so, the question then, and I will say it to parents, and they don't like me a lot after, but I will ask, how much is your child's integrity worth? Because you can't get that back. That takes a lot of time to build back. But they feel such intense pressure to have that high GPA or that high score to get into this next class or whatnot, that it's causing them to make really poor choices in the way of cheating. We had a student at Lambert Senior who had applied in the fall to, top choice of colleges, was a very successful student, very high GPA, and his most recent test scores, we got notified by College Board that they were canceling his latest SAT scores because based on the jump they saw, they felt very sure that there was cheating involved. So instead of that student, that student also got released from several of their Georgia virtual classes, their GABS AP courses that they were taking, because GABS also suspected cheating. So this student, instead of having, a senior year where he could finish strong, head off to some of these top colleges that he had worked hard for, instead, he spent the rest of the year grappling with suicidal ideation, school refusal. His entire world fell apart because of his decision to cheat. So that's the pressure and the cost when we talk about that is, like Ms. Oliver said, there's a cost to everything. And they're gambling very, very with high stakes when they're making the decision to cheat because they're worried about earning it on their.
So I just wanted to share a quick story about a student. His name really is not Sam, but just to be anonymous here. But I had a student who started in 9th grade taking AP Human Geography and then taking some AP classes between 9th and 10th grade over the summer, and then taking lots of AP classes in 10th grade, between 10th and 11th grade, and in 11th grade taking AP classes all day long during the day and taking extra AP classes outside of school. So his senior year rolls around, he's one of our top students, but he completely burns out. He cannot do it. He cannot finish. He's in the counseling office and he's in our admin offices, and he really struggled emotionally and academically. And I think what's so sad about this is that student ended up not walking at graduation, because when I say to you he could not do it, he had really burned out his candle during 9th, 10th, and 11th grade year by taking so many classes and taking so many classes outside of school, that he did not have the emotional or intellectual stamina to continue his senior year. Now, is he going to graduate? Sure, he'll finish this summer. He's going to have to repeat his AP English Lit class that he could not figure out a way to pass, and he's going to have to retake a math class as well, but not an AP class, math class. He's going to, notch it down a little bit and just take a different math class so that he can graduate. So he's going to graduate from high school. I'm not saying he's not graduating, but he did not walk at graduation. And also the colleges that he got accepted to have rescinded those offers. So I think, again, it was a case of probably too much pressure, too many classes that he was being asked to take throughout the course of his high school career, and that ended up being a negative experience for that young man. I definitely think he will recover, but it's going to take a little bit. Just real quick, I think another opportunity, we've kind of touched on this, is AP classes. And what I'll say to you is this: no one in this room probably loves AP classes more than I do. I taught AP English for a number of years. I trained teachers throughout the state how to teach AP English language. And I served as the AP coordinator at South Forsyth High School, Lambert High School, North Forsyth High School before becoming the principal of Denmark High School. So I have been really invested in the AP program. And what I will say is that we offer 28 AP classes at Denmark, and Lambert offers, I think, 29 or 30. South Forsyth, same thing. We offer lots and lots of AP classes, and then Georgia Virtual offers AP classes as well. I encourage students, and I will say this in an AP night, even though we offer them, we don't suggest that students take all of them. Really, students should be taking the classes that they're interested in personally, or maybe it's the class that you want to take in the future because you want to take it right now because it's something you want to major in the future. There's lots of benefits to AP classes, but I think most of those benefits come when you are in a face-to-face setting with teachers who can support you. I think that it's okay for students to struggle in the high school arena, because at that point they're surrounded by us who are invested in them, as well as their parents who are invested in them, so that their first struggles are not faced in college where they don't have such a support system. So my advice about AP classes are, yes, take AP classes, but again, not because someone else is asking you to or because your neighbor's taking them, but because it's something you're interested in. And I think it's great to take them, but maybe not to take all of them. Balance them with other courses and making sure that you progress. And by that we mean, in 9th grade, there's a reason that College Board only offers one AP class. It's because students are not ready for that otherwise. AP Human Geography, the 9th grade course, the exam lasts about 2 hours and 15 minutes. AP World History, the next course in that sequence, the AP exam lasts 3 hours and 15 minutes. There is a different stamina required between those two courses, and that's why we don't see all those courses offered at the 9th grade level. So typically what we'll see is a student will have one 9th grade, 2 or 3 in their 10th grade, and then 3 or 4 their junior and senior year. That's a lot of AP classes still, but occasionally we'll have a student, well, not occasionally, but now it's becoming more popular to take just, by their junior and senior year, 7 AP classes. That is a lot of work that is required. These are college level classes. And then we have students who take those classes, then additional classes outside of school. We will actually have students who miss classes at Denmark and at Lambert because they're trying to catch up on their classes outside of school. So I think, again, it's a balance. I think what we're talking about today is a balance with everything, a balance with AP classes and extracurriculars, a balance with being involved, and then also a progression, and not thinking that 9th graders should be doing the exact same thing as an older senior sibling is doing when we're talking about balance.
I just want to touch on, too, again, the benefits of the face-to-face instruction. We have a lot of families who are trying to figure out this perfect sequence to maximize those rigor points to drive up the GPA. So more and more students are taking classes online. They're trying to overload their summers with online courses in order to get them out of the way so that they can jump to those rigor courses. We see it a lot with math, and we tell them, listen, a 6-week summer course covering what they would normally get face-to-face throughout an entire year is not going to adequately prepare them skill-wise for the next level in this math progression. And so often they won't believe us, they won't listen to the advice of the counselor and the administration, and then they do this, they get put in that course, and then they're asking to get out of it because they weren't ready, and now we've got a low grade that's about to post on the GPA. Same with foreign languages. Foreign language, math, and English are among the worst to try to take in that summer course because those are skills that take a long time to develop. So we just highly encourage them to take those in face-to-face. And like Ms. Oliver said, we've got students at Lambert who will come take a full day of AP courses at Lambert and then go home, and they've got another 7 to 8 AP GAVS courses that they're taking online. There's just no way any human being can manage that number of courses with fidelity and successfully. I think my valedictorian this year graduated with 51 credits. How many was you? It was, yeah. And it's almost double what is necessary in terms of credits for graduation. So they're just really overloading themselves, which is a good segue just to talk about some meetings that I was able to have this year with admissions directors. I went and met personally with some admissions directors at Georgia Tech, and then also with the admissions director, Dr. Michael Graves from University of Georgia. Those are the two schools that Lambert students are aiming for the most. And so I felt as the new principal, it was really doing my due diligence to understand, well, what is your process? What does it look like for Lambert students? Because like I said, when I first got to Lambert, the students came to me immediately and said, Ms. Thurr, we need your help. We need your help with this culture of competition and pressure. So I went right to the source to figure out, well, what does this look like? If I start on this trail to try to limit some of these pieces for students, I just wanted to make sure it was not going to put them at any type of disadvantage. And what both the admissions officers at Tech and Georgia told me is that what they see coming out of Forsyth, particularly Lambert, Denmark, and South Forsyth high schools, is different from any other schools across the state. It's an extreme overload that is not necessary. Georgia Tech told us that Lambert students and Denmark students, more than students coming from Westminster, from Marist, from some of our top private schools in the state, are coming in with way more credits than they are, and that it's just not necessary. But they're doing it because they're competing with each other. So that's on us as leaders to start looking for a path forward to limit. And we are, as high school principals, working with our board to hopefully have some more limitations in place. The University of Georgia was the same thing. Dr. Graves emphasized to me, we're looking for students who we can see from their high school story, not the rank. They said that they don't even look at class rank, that they look at it for the val and sal, and that's it. But they're looking at the whole high school story to see who is going to be a contributor to the University of Georgia community. And like Ms. Oliver shared with her sister-in-law from Princeton, they want a diverse freshman class. So those are the pieces they're looking for. I think what was equally as insightful for me in those conversations was for them to see they really didn't know the type of pressure that our students are under. So me sharing with them what they're doing and why they have all these credits was really eye-opening to them. And Dr. Graves went on to write an article about it that was great. I published it for my community in one of my newsletters. But definitely the feedback from our admissions directors at the two top universities in our state is this is overkill. And so it felt really good to hear from them what we were seeing as well.
Oh, I kind of touched on this before about your counselors. We also mentioned overcommitting and over-scheduling does not equal thriving. And so reach out to your school counselor before your child has an issue. Reach out just to get to know one another. They share amazing opportunities the entire year for kids to be kids, for teens to be teens. And so they are not there only for a crisis, but they are if you need them. But the best way to prevent a crisis is to have a healthy relationship, not only with your child's teachers about what your teachers think are the students' assets, but with your counselors, what do they think are your students' assets? There's nothing like a child asking a counselor to write a recommendation and they've never seen that child before. We see that all the time for programs. They've never went into the counselor to kind of dream and wonder and share their likes and dislikes, but then they expect the counselors to write these glowing recommendations. That's not how any of that works. If your child is only engaging with their teacher about how many more points I can get, that is not the relationship that will fuel them for the rest of their life. So we're trying to teach them how to have the interpersonal skills that they will take beyond this one setting. I think that's it for this one.
I will say sometimes we underutilize our counselors and we hire external counselors and academic advisors to help students. Our counselors, I have one in my counseling department who was an admissions officer at a university, so they understand the admissions process, but they also can help when students are struggling socially or emotionally. They can help counsel with them. They can also find resources for parents. They can find resources for students, even outside of school. So there's lots of resources available in our counseling office, and our first resource really is our counseling department.
I'll just echo that. I have 2 in my counseling department that are former admissions officers at the college level. They are deeply knowledgeable about the process, but we'll have parents who just tell us that they don't trust, that what they're hearing in their community is not what they're hearing from a counselor, and so they don't believe it. So I just encourage you, please trust them. They do know what they're talking about. They are going to work with your student to build them a schedule that they can be successful in, and that will help them reach their goals, their college goals. So just, I also am biased. My husband's a high school counselor as well. He works at Forsyth Academy and helps students who just need a different path to graduation outside of the base school. But they are underutilized and in times under-respected, and they should not be. They know what they're doing for sure.
All right. I have a loud voice, so I'm going to try to keep this away from me as much as possible. Our distinguished principals provided invaluable advice, to be honest with you, and I want to provide more practical and personal stories, also some anecdotes about the people around me. But I want to start first with 4 rhetorical questions. Since these are rhetorical, you don't have to raise your hands and answer. But after these 4 questions, I'm going to also lay out 4 important concepts that are very much relevant to these questions. The first question is, what do you love in life most? Or what are some of the things that you love most? Okay. The second is, what are you good at? Okay. What are you skilled at, maybe? What is your talent? But what are you good at? And the third one is, what does the world need? Okay, because we live in a world, and the world needs certain things. And what does the world need? And finally, what can you be paid for? Okay, these are the 4 fundamental questions that are relevant to your interests. Now, the 4 key concepts revolve around these 4 important questions. Because the first concept is passion. Passion is at the intersection of what do you love and what are you good at, okay? For example, my passion is acting. Just last Saturday, I staged a one-person play, and it was actually my first professional thing because we sold tickets. But I have always approached acting like a passion, and just like 8 days ago, I was very stressful because it was a one-person play. If you forget, there's nobody on the stage to correct you, right? So it was stressful, but it went very well. So acting is my passion. I have some other passions like basketball or chess, etc. But I am sure your children have certain passions, or as parents, you have certain passions. So passion is at the intersection of what are you good at and also what do you love. And then the second thing is mission. What the world needs, and then what do you love most? And the intersection of these 2 questions is called the mission. And I have had several different missions throughout my life. My current mission I see is, or I approach, to create peace islands among people of different color, faith, spiritual background, culture, etc. So I have been doing a lot of interfaith and intercultural work for more than a decade maybe. So basically that's my mission. And keep in mind that the word missionary is also pretty much related to the mission, but I tried not to be a missionary in terms of, approaching those intercultural and interfaith issues. But mission is also very important because it gives some meaning to your life. The third concept is vocation. Vocation is at the intersection of what you can be paid for and also what the world needs. This is where I approach sociology not as a profession, but as a vocation. Because the topics that I study in sociology, religion, immigration, and those kind of topics, gender, media, I try to create some difference in my community or in the world in general. And that's why the world needs certain things, because some of the social issues, they are pretty much related to sociology. Think about race and racial issues in America. It's at the heart of sociology, right? And the world needs some change in terms of these issues. So that's why, just like some of the sociological greats, the fathers of sociology, I also approach sociology as a vocation because I'm also be paid about that, okay? And I don't know if I need to be proud about this, but some of my students at Emory, especially because I used to teach at Emory between 2018 and all the way to 2023 because I started teaching as a grad student. Some of my students changed their majors or they added sociology as a minor after they took my classes. And again, I'm not sure if this is something that I can be proud of because maybe they will regret later on, but still, I was able to change some of the minds of my students after they took my classes. And then the fourth word is another word ending with shin, and it's called profession. Again, this is at the intersection of what you can be paid for and also what you are good at with. Yeah, you can treat, sociology as in terms of my perspective as a profession, but I also did, especially as a grad student, I did different jobs because my tuition, my stipend was not enough to pay a grad student. I had 2 kids at the time. So I used to work as an Uber driver. Later on, I even had a CDL, and I even drove those 18-wheeler trucks. I'm probably the only truck driver with PhD degree in America. You don't see a lot of truck drivers like that. Their average educational attainment is around high school or early college years. But I tried that as well. So you can treat this like American dream at the one hand, but on the other hand, you can also treat this like an immigrant realities. Because I'm just like many of you, when I say many of you, I'm talking about based on certain statistics. According to Pew Research Center, 60% of the Muslims, and I assume that most of you, just like me, most of the audience here is Muslim, 60 to 65% of the Muslims in America, they are first-generation immigrants, which means they weren't born here. But the difference is your children were. Most of your children, they were born here. Even if they weren't, they are what we call 1.5ers, which means even if they are not technically they weren't born here, they came here at a very young age, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and they went through the American educational system, especially during their K through 12 years. That's why even when a child comes here as an immigrant at a very young age, you don't see any accent from them because they went through, they go through the American educational system and they learn more English than their own native languages. So basically, that's why I think when you approach your children, you need to keep in mind what is their mission, what is their profession, maybe future profession, but also vocation, but at the same time passion. Because if we just approach like from a uniform approach, oh, okay, you need to be an engineer just like me, or you need to be a doctor just like me. I think it's not enough. It should be a very uniform approach, and I unfortunately see this around my communities a lot. Because your child might have very different talents. Just a couple of days ago, if you are following the cricket games, American cricket team beat Pakistani team, which is something very unexpected. I compare this to Miracle on Ice in 1980 when U.S. Ice hockey team beat, because they were amateurs, they beat the professional Russian team. But at the same time, Brother Shakil told me that this American cricket team is also half amateur, half professional. So probably this is their passion. And they maybe after this win, they are going to maybe think more seriously about it. So there are a bunch of different opportunities. I am a social scientist. And believe me, in social science, there are also different opportunities once you decide to choose a social science pathway or a humanities pathway. There are a lot of different opportunities open to you. At least your child in the future can try those opportunities, maybe like a minor. Who knows? And I had a student at Emory. She had a sociology major, and she took one of my sociology classes. And she decided to be a human rights activist. And she lived in Palestine and Israel in 1 year. And then she took 1 year, gap year. And then she's, getting prepared for maybe law school in the future. But she's right now doing her master's at Columbia University. And if you are following the news at Columbia University, she's the spokesperson of the protests at Columbia University right now. She became the spokesperson for the entire protests at Columbia University. So she's very local about, she maybe sees this like a passion/mission, but she's also doing at a very high level at an Ivy League university. And she was a very bright student of mine. So there are, like I said, different things that are open to you, especially once you start your college career. And I also see a kind of obsession in some of my Turkish or non-Turkish Muslim friends, like Georgia Tech or bust, or Emory or bust. It's not necessarily so, because I used to teach a class at UGA a couple of years ago, right after 1 year after pandemic. And I have, witnessed, firsthand, UGA students were equally smart as my Emory students at the time. I didn't see any difference between their approach to my sociology class, and they didn't even take introduction to sociology. They took a little bit more difficult class, which was sociology of religion, and they were equally bright, and I didn't see much of a difference. And the facilities and all the academic opportunities at UGA during my 1 semester tenure there, it was pretty much no different from Emory. Georgia Tech is also pretty much similar. I also hear, stories about some of my friends whose children go to Kennesaw State, for example. And at Kennesaw, there's, one of my friend's child, she's a computer scientist over there, but she doesn't complain that she's at Kennesaw or maybe Georgia State. Why? Because it's about your personal improvement, your self-improvement. And she's going to continue her master's at Georgia Tech. So she's not worried about anything. So there are always different opportunities. It's not enough to get into Harvard or Georgia Tech or other places. Your next steps are important. Also, our distinguished professors provided very important statistics, and I want to provide one more statistics. Do you know what is the most popular among the freshman college students? Do you know what is the most popular major? Undeclared. Undeclared is the most popular major. It's between 20 to 30%. Not only that, and I got this statistics from the Center for Educational Higher Education. There's another statistics. 40 to 50% of the college students, at least 40 to 50% of them, they change their majors during their college careers. So again, maybe they start their college career with some sort of maybe some force or kind of, I don't want to use the word oppression, but a kind of quasi-oppression from their parents, and they are kind of disillusioned with the things that they study, and they take some classes, including my classes, and they say, hey, I want to change to social sciences or humanities or maybe the interdisciplinary things. So there are always those kind of different opportunities. And keep in mind, again, since most of you, just like me, are immigrant parents, some doors might be closed for you. Unfortunately to us, for immigrants, some doors are closed because we are very late here in this country. But your children are not. They are not late in this country. So they are going to have a lot of doors ready and will be opened for them. So you don't have to rush about your children. Just take your time. I read another funny statistics. A child, on average, not a child, basically a baby or an infant, they on average fall around 200 times before they learn walking or they learn how to walk. Are we that patient with our children as much as at the time of their infancy? Or, let alone 200 or 100, maybe we don't even give them 20, 30 chances, right? So we should be patient. Don't scared or don't be fearful about being wrong when your child or children choose something and they don't like it. Don't say, hey, I told you should have chosen this major or that major. They should choose, and they should, it's like a trial and error. They should become unsuccessful. Because once they become unsuccessful, it's a new learning opportunity for them. Not as like a failure, but it's a new learning opportunity, and it's a new experience, because experience is the combination of basically all the heartbreaks and disillusions and disappointments in our life. So basically, I want to finish with this, guys, which is voluntary opportunities. It's a kind of tick that you need to, complete as part of your college application. But just a couple of days ago, my wife is here. She also witnessed that as well. We went to one of the Georgia State parks. It's called the State Fargo, Yorgo Fargo, or something like that. It has a very different name. But it's a state park. We stayed just one night. The next morning, there were two people around the age of probably 70 to 75, and they had a T-shirt which says volunteer at the back, and they were cleaning all the ashes because people were, making fires, etc. one night before, and they were cleaning all the trash, all the ashes, etc. And they were doing this as a volunteer at the age of, I'm not exaggerating, they were around 70, 75. And they were walking very slowly, but at the same time, they were also doing this voluntary activity. A couple of years ago, our children and I, we decided to volunteer for a church. Okay, there was this food donation campaign or drive, and people donate food. They buy supermarket food, they take it to the church, and then you take it to the households in the North Atlanta area. And we decided to, they gave us like 4 or 5 household worth of, grocery items. And we were super surprised that 2 of the 5 households that we visited, they were Muslim households. Because they greeted us, and I saw their, Allah, which means God in Arabic, with the bracelet, etc. And I was very surprised that 2 Muslim families were getting help. They were getting some food donation from a church. And I wasn't offended. I was just surprised in a very good way, because that church didn't discriminate. Oh, okay, we should always help those who are only accepting Jesus as their savior. No, they didn't make that discrimination. And they were basically helping everybody. So basically, those kind of voluntary opportunities, they are eye-opening opportunities, not only for your children, probably for you as well. So I think when I say whatever the world needs, I think when world needs something, it also means we also need that thing. And when we engage in those voluntary opportunities, my humble advice to you, try to join your child when they volunteer for something, okay? Because those experiences and volunteering opportunities, they are gonna also be pretty much eye-opening for you as well. So basically, like I said, this is what I wanted to share with you, because we are gonna move on to the Q&A session now. But keep in mind that everybody is different. And this is a cliche that we always say. If everybody is different, then how come most of the people within certain communities, they go for almost the same profession, like 2 or 3 same professions? If everybody is different, why are they taking the same profession? Either everybody is not different, or we are doing something wrong here. And I don't think everybody is the same. Everybody is pretty much different. Even our 3 children are pretty much very different from each other. So I think there's only one option left. I think maybe, including myself, maybe we are doing something wrong by pushing our children to certain, schools or certain professions. So I think you decide, guys, where sometimes, at what point we commit this error. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nazik Munshi, and I am the founder and owner of Pinnacle Explore Tutoring. So I get to talk a lot to parents and students. A lot of parents, they ask me that I have 2 kids. My older one, he graduated from Denmark High School under the leadership of Ms. Oliver, and my daughter, she's a rising 8th grader at Piney. Dr. O, she's always, I've seen her always supporting and motivating students. And Miss Oliver, I've seen that as well from you. My older one, he's at Georgia Tech. And a lot of parents, they come to me, they ask me, so what are the ingredients for a student to go to Georgia Tech? Well, I am in a very awkward position when they ask me that, because there's no such recipe for your child to go to a certain college that you desire. So parents should trust their children. Parents need to listen to their children. A lot of time, as parents, we just give advice and instruction to our children. So we need to take time to listen to them. Each child is different. Each student is different. When I talk to parents and students, the students, they come to me, they tell me that, my mom or my dad, they don't give me that comfort or that open environment at my house where, I can openly discuss things with my parents. So please, parents, moms and dads here, please listen to your children. Your child may want that from you for us students to be successful, they need support from teachers, they need support from parents, and that's how they can become successful at life. We've put a lot of time and effort into organizing this program. I encourage moms, dads, students over here, please feel free to ask questions. If you're not comfortable asking questions, students, you want to write down notes and give to the leaders here, I would appreciate that as well from everybody. Let's start with the question answers.
I would like to thank you, all the leaders present here, to be among us and sharing your experience and expertise. It was very, very informative. Thank you so much. The first word revealed in Quran, the holy book that Muslims follow, is Iqra, which literally translates to read. And by translation, education and educators. So the importance of education and by extension educators is very high in Islam. So guys, let's give a round of applause for the educators who live this day in, day out. I got 3 questions, so be patient with me as I complete all those 3 questions. The first question that I have, Ms. Amanda mentioned her valedictorian completed 51 credits. So my question is, the requirement is 23 credits. As in when a student completes 23 credits, are they considered graduate from high school, or do they have to complete all 4 years of education to be considered as a graduate from high school? That's my first question. And my second question is, we have seen the pandemic. We have lived through that one. It presented its unique challenges, more so of the remote education. A lot of students were remote, studying remote. You have seen all the batches before a pandemic as well. Would like to know any positives or negatives that you particularly see in students that have gone through this pandemic, as compared to the students who had their instruction, everything in person. And my third and last question is related to the Islamophobia. What advice and tips would you give to students and parents who might be seeing or who are experiencing Islamophobia, whether it's teenager being a teenager, blurring the lines between being naughty and crossing into Islamophobia, or whether it's coming from more serious sources like misinformed media, and more recently the Hindutva that's emanating from India. So I appreciate the answers.
So your first question was about credits. And the majority of our students end up graduating with more than the state number of required credits, which I think is 23 credits. And most of ours end up with more than that, because in Forsyth, they're already at an advantage because we offer several credits at the middle school level. In terms of physical science, many come in with the Algebra 1 credit, and most come in with the Spanish 1 credit. So most of our students are starting with 3 credits already. We also, based on the bell schedules all of our high schools run, even though they're all a little nuanced and a little different, they also offer students 7 classes during the day, which is more than our surrounding districts. It's more than Gwinnett and more than Fulton. I believe it's more than Cherokee, who are at 6. So our students are naturally going to have the opportunity to accumulate more credits than others. Some use that opportunity their junior and senior year to take advantage of a program we called IE squared, where they can either arrive late in the day or leave early in the day to have an outside of school job if they wish. Several of them, that you can use it for a variety of different things. So if you're ahead on your credits, many take advantage of IE squared, or others will use it as a chance to get more rigor credits, which are your AP credits, your dual enrollment credits, where you're offered, where an A is considered a 5 on your GPA instead of a 4. So I don't know, did that fully answer your question about the credits? If they are ahead, they can graduate early, absolutely. The state requirement is much lower than what most of ours end up graduating with.
In order for students to graduate early, there are certain classes that are required. So even though it's 23 credits, there are certain English classes, math credits, and things like that that they have to have. So if they fulfill those requirements, we do have students who graduate in 3 years, and then we have some students who graduate in like 3.5 years. So there'll be a December graduate, and then they'll wait and they'll walk with us in May.
And most of those state required courses are in a progression, so they can't take them all at once. They're prerequisites to work up to. The positive and negative. Oh, so that's a great question. This graduating class that just crossed the stage for us, these were students who transitioned into high school in the middle of the pandemic. So these are the students that didn't get to finish their 8th grade year because of the shutdown, and many spent their freshman year online, some sophomore year, or my daughter was one of these. Her freshman year, she had a very rough transition to high school because of the pandemic, and most of her friends were doing online virtual, and we said, no, you're going face to face in person. So I definitely think that we've seen a lot of mental health struggles. My own daughter struggled her freshman year with social anxiety because of the shutdown. She had just been away from the social aspects of school for so long. And what a lot of people don't realize when it comes to social anxiety is it's a lot like a muscle that will atrophy if you're not using it. So our answer sometimes for our students when they're saying that they're anxious or socially anxious is to not force them into social environments, when what they really need is some opportunities to rebuild that muscle back up. And so for sure we've seen a lot of students struggling with mental health, struggling with the social anxiety aspects, and we've also seen learning loss. As educators who believe in public education, I will never say that an online class is equivalent to face-to-face. I just don't believe that. I wouldn't have become an educator myself if I did. I believe in the power of relationships. I believe that face-to-face interaction, that relationship, that connection is where our students get the most out of instruction. Yes. Yes. We're also at the middle school level. I know saw a lot of behaviors in students, and I'll let Dr. O share a lot about that. But I think, from my perspective, in the students I was working with at Liberty Middle School, they were educated and parented by this during the pandemic to the extent that they were just exposed to things that they weren't cognitively ready to see, and that made them make some pretty poor choices. But
So she alluded to the pretty poor choices. The classes that I'll have next year, the 6th, 7th, and 8th grader, they were online many of the times unsupervised in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade year. Now, typically in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, those are when the rigors of elementary school start to come into play. You're becoming a voracious reader, you're becoming a prolific writer, and in 4th grade, you should be an excellent mathematician and scientist. And so we now have a group of students who are in our building who are lacking in those skills, and that's frustrating them. But they're very, very proficient as a digital native with technology. So much so that we see the uptick of inappropriate language such as profanity, inappropriate racial slurs, talking about other people's culture. Piney, part of our beliefs has been revised just to include we love people for their likes and their differences so we can learn from them. So that's something that you should start to, expect to hear from your local schools more and more, and not assume that it's not my child. I think the hardest part for us at the middle grades level is that we're taking students to tribunal about threats of violence based on race, based on gender, based on religious beliefs. We never saw that before to the extent that we're seeing that now. So that leads into your third question about Islamophobia and other phobias. We started a club at our school called No Place for Hate, so that we can safely, within a boundary of an approved curriculum, talk to students about how to respect others, not to put others down, how to communicate effectively about their own religious beliefs, their own culture, their own race, so that they don't shrivel and shrink if it's brought up. So that was one of the mental health struggles students were having. If someone brought up something and was trying to insult them about something that was very important to them, they would just pack it all inside. And you'd see tears, you'd see crying, you'd see notes about being, sad that someone doesn't understand their race, religion, or culture. So we knew we had to do something about it. So if you can talk to your students about that there's never a time to hate, if everyone continues to do that, then we'll actually make some headway with some of the loss that we learned during COVID.
Also, to piggyback on that, I think most of us we all have school improvement plans, and one of our goals for that is a goal 2 about inclusivity. So we are working. I think one of the things that we can do is, as adults, model that behavior where we are a partnership with your community more frequently than we have been in the past, and also giving students an outlet, like exploring different religious holidays, educating our teachers on that. When is it okay that we do a project with food? It would not be when students are fasting for religious holidays. So us, as the leaders of the school, educating not only our students but the adults in the building. So that is something that we are undergoing. We do have training for our teachers as well to help them model the behavior that we expect. But one of the things that we do at Denmark is we meet with our student presidents from all of our organizations. So it's called Student Leadership Council, SLC, and we meet twice a month with those student leaders. And we will meet with, the president of the Black Student Union, the president of the Muslim Student Union. We will meet with the president of SGA. So all of the presidents are represented, and they bring to us concerns that they have, or they will bring to us activities that they want us to do in our school. And if we can, I will just tell you, if there's something that a student brings to us, and they bring it to us, and they present it to us, and it's something that we can conceivably do, not give it to us and us do it as adults, but if the students have checks and balances and they
it's finding a point of connectivity beyond that. And that's also one of my daughter's best friends is Islam, and that's how we have come to learn more about religion. The best way to understand and love someone is to do it up close, right? So she has that personal relationship with one of her best friends, which is brought my family into, being when her friend comes over, we look at what we're serving and all those things. So that's how I think too, when we look at what we're serving and all those things. So that's how I think too, that happens organically like that because our students are in real connection with each other is when we make the most headway.
And they provide a lot of different presentations of the army. I am not sure public, but I know that they have some private that allows them. And they are not doing some buses. They have nothing Ramadan, anyway. So I think they have very
Thank you for those questions, and thank you for your regard for our profession. Teaching as a profession is one of the pathways that's offered in all of our high schools, and we need great teachers. My daughter, she's in it. She wants to teach second grade and then someday be a principal. And we're not encouraging our students enough to go into education. So if your students love kids and they love school, please encourage them to consider a career in education.
So just something very personal to me, my dad actually encouraged me to major in computer science. So it's funny now because I solve all my computer problems by turning it on and off. But I I was in that for a semester, and I realized that was not going to bring me real joy. So I had to talk to my dad and say, look, I know that's what you want me to do, but I can't do it. I can't imagine my life any differently than it is 31 years later, and think about the thousands of students I've been blessed to interact with. So what sometimes the high school principal and the middle school principal job is difficult, and what brings us joy and what resets us is to be around our students. So if I'm having a difficult day, I just go to a classroom and I see the beauty of the classroom, and when I walk in, students are like, "Who, come sit by me, I'll tell you what's going on." And I was in a computer science classroom this year, and I was sitting by a student, and I leaned over and I was like, "I really have no idea what we're talking about." He's like, "It's okay, me either." So in his defense, he'd been absent a little bit. So I think that, you know, we also have had to find our own paths, what we've been talking about today.
Good evening. I'm a rising 8th grader who doesn't have much idea about high school, so I have 3 questions. My first question is, how many AP classes do you suggest taking? My second question is, how many clubs do you suggest joining? Like, not too many, but not too little. And question number 3 is about AP, IB, and dual enrollment. What are the differences, and what are the strengths you would recommend having to take these programs? Thank you.
So I'm going to start from the last question first. So when you're talking about AP, IB, and dual enroll, IB is International Baccalaureate Program, and it is a program, which means that you are required to take all of the classes required by International Baccalaureate Program. So it's offered at South Forsyth High School, which is where I was originally in this county. And what that means is that you don't have as much choice. So when you graduate, it is like an IB diploma that you will receive, and colleges and universities will give you credit on that. For AP, you can pick and choose, so you don't have to choose, like your schedule doesn't have to be AP all day. With IB, mostly your classes are IB all day, and IB is your junior and senior year, so you can take AP classes before you get to that. And then with AP, you can pick and choose what you would like to do. Dual enroll is something that our students also can do. It is through colleges and universities in the area. Here's what gets tricky about dual enroll. We have no control over it. So a teacher who's teaching AP has been to a week-long training, has been certified by College Board, and they have submitted their syllabus to College Board. And so College Board has approved that, and that means that, generally speaking, the experience across the United States is relatively the same. When students take the AP exam and when students take an IB exam, they're taking that exam across the United States and across the world, and you can compare yourself to students across the United States. Sometimes in a college dual enroll setting, I've tutored students before for English, and in some classes they're writing, you know, a couple of paragraphs, and in some they're writing essays. It's not necessarily the same curriculum in all of the classes, but you will definitely earn college credit if you take dual enroll by passing your classes. What's important to note is that your college transcript starts immediately with dual enroll classes. For AP and IB, you have the full experiences, and you will earn your credit for colleges by taking an exam at the end of the class. As far as how many AP classes you should take, it's hard to say since we don't know you individually, but I will just say that, you know, that's really a decision you make with your parents. You should take some that you're interested in, but like we've said previously, a progression where you would take 1, and then your 10th grade year maybe take somewhere between 1 and 3, and then your junior year maybe 4, or even a couple more if you wanted to, and the same for your senior year. But there are some prerequisites. So just because you want to take, let's say you want to take AP Bio, you have to have some prerequisites for that. You have to be at least enrolled in honors chemistry, so there's some prerequisites for that. And as far as clubs, I think that varies by individuals, but it needs to be some clubs that you can demonstrate where you have contributed, from being a member to being an officer. One of the clubs that I definitely suggest is student government. So student government allows you to influence a campus in a larger format. We ask for your opinion. We meet with you regularly, so that's something I would definitely suggest. But I think, I don't want to give a number, but for my personal children, they all did about 4 clubs that they were really involved with, and some of those were academic clubs. And then in addition to that, they were in healthcare science, so they were also in HOSA. So for sure, whatever pathway you're in, I recommend participating in that pathway CTSO. So if you're in marketing or business, you would do DECA or FBLA. If you're in vet science, you would be in FFA. So whatever organization works with that, I would do for sure.
And I would just echo, more so than quantity, being strategic in the quality of the courses. So in my meetings with Tech and Georgia admissions, one of the things they will look at, if you put a major down when you go to apply, is did they take advanced placement or dual enrollment courses that are under the umbrella of that major. They're also looking to see that there's a variety. So, we offer a lot of humanities-based AP classes, so they love to see some of those, but they also like to see, maybe we tried a science, maybe we tried a math. The other thing, like Ms. Oliver said, is they're looking to see that progression, so that you didn't overwhelm yourself as a 9th grader, but you took maybe AP Human. That's a great intro AP course. Whether you're interested in the humanities or not, we tell students, if you know you're going to take AP courses later, AP Human Geography just teaches you what an AP class is like. It's a very good kind of starting point, and then progressively add them on. You can go on college websites and see, I think the average Lambert, and they do compare you by what's offered at your high school. The average Lambert graduate getting into UGA had between 9 to 12 AP courses, but my daughter had 8 and she got in. So it's, again, there's not an ingredient or a recipe to follow, and every year those admissions officers, the target's going to move. They're looking for just a different group each year. But I think going back to the questions, that what do you love? I love these questions. What do you love? What are you good at? Think about those things. And what do you want to do long term, maybe as a career? Those are definitely the questions I would ask for both my AP courses or dual enrollment and my club involvement.
Just a couple of tips that we're telling our students who are rising 8th graders, because that comes up so quickly. We start talking to you about high school and career readiness in September. So we really get a good little month to love on you, and then we dive in because the high schools will start to do their selection process. So one thing I tell you to do when you're thinking about AP classes, the beauty is that College Board has videos upon videos for all 32 courses that they offer. So you literally can start to watch and engage and find out what are they talking about in the course. I have so many kids who say, well, I want to take every science AP class because I want to be in healthcare. Well, that's all well and good until you learn what each unit is discussing. And you might watch a video that tells you about all the units and realize most of that class doesn't inspire me. So if you're not inspired by what you're watching as they preview the coursework with you, you might want to consider, do I want to spend 4 hours minimum outside of class on that AP class? That's where kids kind of get into trouble. They don't preview what the classes are about. They say, well, my older brother took AP Bio, so that means I need to take it because he went into blah, blah, blah. Or my older sister wanted to take Georgia Tech math, so they did this, this, and this. But you look at the Georgia Tech math curriculum and it doesn't inspire you. You have time to do that if you build your transcript with a few classes at a time and you use the resources that are free to preview what those courses are about. The other portion about the variety, my daughter also went to UGA, and we made a point, she was my first child that we were sending to college. We made it a point to say, pick what you love. So she has AP Art History, she had AP Chem, but not AP Bio. She had AP Calc, but not Statistics. She had AP Human, she had AP US, she had, so she had a couple of things that were things that stuck out, but not focusing on taking everything that they offer. My next kid was like, I love history, but I only want to take US history. She took that one class, enjoyed it, got into all the colleges that she applied for. So really think about what you love, because it's a big time commitment and you have to write passionately about it. When you're looking at clubs, consider 3 things. Does the club that you like to go to weekly exist at your school? Would you like to lead an effort in starting that club? The second thing is there a club with a group of students that you actually want to be around? Kids always say, well, this looks like good, it's like it's going to be good on my transcript, or when I share it with family, I'm in this club. But then they're in the club and they hate everybody in it. These are people interactions, so that you have to spend a lot of time with them. So think about those 2 things. And then the third thing is pick something that lets you blow off steam. So the club doesn't necessarily have to be with a career technical organization or a high-powered academic honor society. It might be something as simple as, we had a crocheting club. We never knew it was going to take off the way that it did, and it was a big reason, big in part, is because the kids felt like they can blow off steam, learn to knit and crochet, and talk to people they'd never met before. So think about those things when you're selecting clubs.
So I will say that likewise, my son in particular took a variety of AP classes, and he chose not to take AP English, which really hurt my feelings terribly, but I let him choose. So I have some questions here. It says, if I drop a class, can I take it again the corresponding years? What is the timeline? What timeline is assigned to drop out of classes during the beginning of a school year? I'm a rising sophomore at Denmark High School. I've never received information regarding when I can drop a class, and where do I find that? And if I drop, will my whole schedule change? So here's how it works at the high school. We actually don't allow class changes. So the reason you haven't heard any information about it is because it's not something that we do. So in the spring, when you are coming to us, we have lots of information nights where we share with parents all the courses that we offer. Students then select their classes in January. They're given an opportunity in March to change their classes. And then we hire and we create a master schedule on the courses that students select. So if students change their minds in August, we really don't have places for them to go because we hired and created a master schedule based on student selection. So students are like, well, I wanted to try a course. Well, you can't really try a course because then we don't have seats in other courses, if that makes sense. So think about it this way. Let's say that we're all going to try AP World History. So therefore, we hire an additional AP World History teacher, and we have all those classes with like 28 students in it. Across the hall, we have 2 teachers teaching regular World History. They also have 28 to 30 students in it. Well, if 20 students decide they don't want to take AP World History, we're not going to then put those kids in regular World History because then those classes are too large. So again, that's why you haven't heard about dropping classes and changing schedules. Because we really, at the high school, it's not necessarily exploratory. That's why it's so important to come to parent nights We have students there to talk to you about what is the course really like. We will have the teachers there as well to talk about that, so that's why you really haven't heard that.
Lambert's the same way. Just recent, I think one of the things that happened with the pandemic is we kind of opened the gate to letting kids kind of move back and forth more, and it created lots of problems for the master schedule. So this has kind of been the first year at Lambert where we really tightened up those procedures, but not before. We also really strengthened our registration process so that when students are selecting in the spring, this goes back to trusting your school counselors. They're going to look if your student's trying to sign up for a schedule that's just, because they want to try out these classes, they're going to look at that and say, time out. I think we need to look at this again and create more of a balance. So trust those counselors, and also trust your teachers will make a recommendation, whether they think you're ready for a higher rigor course or to stay at the rigor level that you're at or to come down in some cases. So we really ask families to trust those teacher recommendations and trust your counselor in building that balanced schedule, so you're not in the situation where you feel like you need to drop a course, because we can't really allow that. Are there other questions? Sorry. I think he asked about making school improvements.
So his question was specifically about Denmark High School class sizes. So I will just tell you that every teacher allotment that we have is used for teacher allotments. We don't flex our teacher allotments to be admin or anything like that. So mostly our classes range from somewhere between 25 and 32. We don't generally have classes over 32 unless it might be a CTAE class where we don't have an additional teacher for that class, because we want our teachers to teach 5. We are also looking to add healthcare science in the next year or two, because our students have asked for that repeatedly. We wanted to make sure that science was up and running before we did that. So that is also something. Our students do get to fill out surveys asking us to add additional pathways. That's how we added cloud computing, and that's how we also added artificial intelligence starting last year. And so whenever our students indicate that there's a need for that, we do. But generally speaking, if you look at other high schools in the area, you will find that I think our class sizes are at least as equally as small as the other high schools, and I don't think they're going to be larger than that, because I know at some schools there are classes of like regular 35, and we don't have classes of 35 except for the possible exception with the CTAE course where we don't have multiple teachers who teach that class.
And as principals, one of the things we do that Ms. Oliver talked about every summer is we spend time on our school improvement plans. Well, we spend time on them all year. But to answer your question, we're always looking at how we can get better. We were all hired by a retiring superintendent who tells us regularly, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no such thing as status quo, and we believe that wholeheartedly. So even a school, that hangs a lot of banners and has really high test scores like Lambert, I know that there are areas for improvement. And so we are constantly looking at how we can create a better experience for our students and our employees.
How bad it's gonna look if a student drop out a course while applying the college application?
So another reason why we don't allow dropping and why we try to get the process right on the front end is because we can't ethically drop a class without posting that where the grade is on the transcript. And that's something that a lot of families don't understand is they want to pretend like their student didn't sit in this class for X amount of time, and we can't ethically say that they didn't. So if in a very dire situation, which this is outlier situation, but if we have to drop a course, the grade will still post on the transcript for the colleges to see, because that ethically is what we have to do. The student sat in the course, they didn't do well, we can't pretend that didn't happen. So again, that's why we try to get the registration process so right and you know, urge students not to overcommit themselves.
So it becomes a seat availability thing. So what happens is registration starts so early for students who are already in our district that sometimes the it's full for certain pathways when students enter. Because what happens is students have a GTID number assigned to them by the state. You cannot be enrolled in two schools at the same time, even if it's a private school and a public school. So therefore, we can't complete their registration from private school until really the end of May when the private school concludes. So when that happens, there's not going to be as many options for CTAE. I will say this, you can change between 9th and 10th grade because it takes 3 years to complete a pathway. So a student can change pathways between 9th and 10th grade year. Most likely when a student comes in as a 10th grade student, they're not going to necessarily be allowed to change just because it does take 3 years to finish the pathway.
We've had that at the middle school level. So what we've advised parents to do is that since it is private school, they can move their child after December. So many parents were traveling for family vacations outside of the country, and then we just say enroll them in 8th grade, then you get those choices to start the high school and public school with the same scheduling arrangement. Not apply early, you would withdraw them from the private school because it's a paid commitment by you. You make that arrangement with the private school. We're a public school, so you can kind of come whenever you want and we'll welcome you. And so you don't miss that registration window. That's been a very, very, it's transient for us, but if that's what makes your life easier as a family, for the opportunities you want your child to have and you know that they plan on attending Denmark High School, we would prefer that and we'll welcome you and get you situated in that way.
So I have a question here. I've heard that if a teacher recommends you for a class, you can drop it. Is this true? If so, can you take the class again after you drop it? So I don't know if this is like, so what will happen is a teacher will recommend you, let's just say, from middle school to 9th grade English, and your options are honors 9th grade English or on level 9th grade English or college prep 9th grade English. And so you definitely, if you're recommended for honors English, you certainly can sign a waiver and you can move to regular 9th grade English, but 9th grade English is required, so you still have to take it during that year. If a teacher recommends you for, let's say you took the introduction course to a fine arts class, let's say art, for instance, and then your teacher recommends you for ceramics, and you don't want to take ceramics, you're your 10th grade year because you just can't fit into your schedule, you're not that interested in ceramics, and you don't take it your 10th grade year. But your junior year, you would like to take ceramics. There's no problem. You can take ceramics your junior year.
The other thing I'll add to that is even if a teacher recommended you and you're in that class and you're struggling and you want to drop, we're not dropping you until we've applied a lot of interventions first, meaning the student has come to help sessions. We've utilized what we call lunch and learn at Lambert. Dropping a course is the very last thing we will pursue. So we have to see a lot of effort on behalf of the student first, that we're trying all of these other supports that we offer before we go down the course to drop. And whether or not you can take it again, if it's a college or if it's a graduation credit course, yeah, you're going to take it again. We're going to figure out a way to get you through it.
But that is if you fail the course. If you pass the course, even if you make a C, you really can't take it again. So you're not permitted to retake courses that you've passed. It's already posted to your transcript, and you've already got the graduating credit for that.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, speakers, for your time.